The country of Yemen has suffered yet another suicide bombing attack. This time, 60 people have been murdered. The death toll may rise once investigators sort out the details. The country of Yemen has been going through a civil war of sorts for several months now. It actually began last year. On one side, there are the Saudis, who are Sunni Muslims. They are backed by the United States, of course. Then there are the Iranians, who are not backed by the United States. They are Shia Muslims. Shia and Sunni Muslims have been busy killing each other for the last 1400 years because both of them claim to follow the true path of Islam, quote unquote. Yemen is in a particular mess because in addition to most of the world just not caring about the country in general, it really is not rich in any natural resources that other nations would take an interest in to exploit, but it is the territory that is in the middle, caught between two vested interests or two nations which are trying to spread their hegemony throughout the Middle East. One, again, is the Saudis, who are fighting to thwart Iran. Then you have Iran, which is pushing back against the Saudis. Both sides seek to be the dominant power in the Middle East, in addition to Israel. The people who suffer the most in this conflict are, of course, the innocent civilians in Yemen who would just like to lead a normal life. A bomb has gone off at the Forensics Institute in Brussels in Europe. No one was injured, and so far no one has claimed responsibility as of this broadcast. Police, of course, are investigating. It may or may not be a terrorist attack. Palestinian National Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, who is in the 10th year of his original 4-year term in office, is doing something that analysts and political pundits are claiming is suicidal per se. He has now called for elections on October 8th. Can you believe this, folks? Normally, when somebody calls for elections, it's because they're sure they can win. Yet polls indicate that if the elections in the little bit of Palestine left that Abbas controls, the so-called West Bank, polls indicate that if the election were held today, Palestinians would toss him out unceremoniously. They don't like him. Why don't they like him? It's because of his corruption and the fact that he's done absolutely nothing for them positive in the 10 years that he has been in power. Hamas, the terrorist group who controls the Gaza Strip, was legally elected under the bright idea of former President George Bush and former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, who thought they'd introduce a little bit of democracy into Gaza. Hamas won that election because they were upset with Abbas at the time and the Palestinian National Authority when it was run into the ground under the terrorist suicide bombing sponsorship and leadership of Yasser Arafat. Hamas then staged a violent coup, ousted the remainder of the Palestinian National Authority forces, and Palestine, or the Palestinians, have been split ever since. Although Abbas claims he is the spokesman for the Palestinians, and supposedly Hamas and the Palestinians have some sort of unity agreement, it's only on paper, not in reality. The truth is, no single voice with any authority at all that is credible speaks for the Palestinians, and the terrorist group Hamas must be now licking their chops because they will likely win the election if they field candidates in the West Bank that will now be held tentatively on October 8th. What will Abbas do if he loses? Who knows? Hopefully he'll retire, take all of his skimmed off millions that exist in his Swiss bank account, and call it a day while he has actively led the Palestinians over the proverbial cliff. In the meantime, there is no further progress on any peace talks with Israel to reach a viable two-state agreement or settlement for the only reason that matters. Hamas will not recognize Israel's right to exist because they're Hamas, And the Palestinian National Authority under Abbas refuses to meet with Israel, even though Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has made it clear that he will meet Abbas anywhere, anytime, any place, without any preconditions. This is something Abbas insisted on for years. When Netanyahu finally called his bluff, Abbas suddenly doesn't have the time to meet. Go figure. Let's see how this story develops, whether elections really will take place. Abbas has become increasingly erratic, although his eccentricities are being dismissed to being old or that he's up there in years. The fact is, Abbas has always been a supporter of terrorism. He was Yasser Arafat's money bagman for years. He personally handed the funds to the terrorists who went to the 1972 Munich Olympics in Germany and then murdered 11 Israeli athletes. In fact, Abbas has never been a partner for peace. Politicians who have called him that in the past are outright lying. Germany has announced that it has reached a settlement or agreement with other European nations, especially the country of Italy and, of course, France. Germany now says that it will welcome, quote unquote, another 300,000 immigrants from war-torn areas such as Syria. Since Germany has proven itself incapable of handling the influx of 1.3 million immigrants already, this latest development should be welcome news, ha-ha, to the German people. Angela Merkel, Germany's chancellor, has seen her ratings plummet ever since she deliberately mismanaged the immigration issue. Now that Germany is going to bring in 300,000 more immigrants, making a total of 1.6 million, some 99% of which have no jobs, and there's no evidence that they will be hired nor assimilate peacefully and productively into German society. No wonder Europeans are saying enough is enough, this is out of control, we need to do a better job. And this is why now at least 10 countries, possibly 12, are working on holding a referendum to see whether they even want to stay in the European Union. This includes, of course, even Brussels itself, one of the headquarters of the European Union's parliament. Even the French people are indicating that enough is enough. They are upset and divided over the new decision recently levied by the French court that banned the banning of the burkini. French people say they want the burkini banned. Resorts and towns, at least 20 of them, have said they will not enforce the court's suspension of the law. The whole issue will go back to the parliament, and how the political parties feel about the issue is also split. San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick has said that he will continue to sit out or down while the national anthem of the United States is played before the beginning of all of the football games that he participates in. He also claims that he'll continue to sit down until change happens. Good luck with that. This single protest isn't going to make a difference because the issue that he is talking about is not quite as he paints it out to be. Ironically, Kaepernick's parents, who are black, abandoned him as a child, gave him up for adoption, and he was raised by a white couple. This is an athlete that has a contract worth well over $100 million, has absolutely enjoyed prosperity and success in the United States. While he has yet to win the 49ers a Super Bowl, and many doubt he'll ever be able to do that, the pressure's on him since previous quarterbacks for the 49ers, such as the legendary Joe Montana, who won 4 Super Bowls, and Steve Young, who won another Super Bowl. Colin Kaepernick has yet to win any. Most fans are expressing their displeasure over his political antics. They think that football itself, as all sports, should be apolitical, and they are correct.